future Boilermakers, and welcome to our live Q&A broadcast about the School of Aviation and Transportation Technology at Purdue. Tonight we will discuss several majors, including Aeronautical Engineering Technology, Aerospace Financial Analysis, Airline Management and Operations, Airport Management and Operations, Aviation Management, and Unmanned Aerial Systems. We will not be discussing our professional flight major tonight, but 1 week from right now, we will do another broadcast exclusively about professional flight. That's coming at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on February 14th, 2023. Congratulations to all of you who've been admitted to Purdue. We are so glad you could join us tonight. I'm Vicki Gilbert, the Recruiting, Placement, and Internship Coordinator here in the School of Aviation and Transportation Technology. 3 professors and 3 current students are here as well. They will be our panelists, and I will ask them to introduce themselves in a minute. We will have several topics and questions that we will discuss, and we also want to know what you want to know. You can submit questions via the YouTube chat window by signing into your Google account and typing them in. Our technical director, John O'Malley, will be monitoring the chat and will try to pass along your questions. If I don't get to your question tonight, please feel free to send a follow-up email to techrecruit@purdue.edu, and we will respond later on. As we begin, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. Good evening, Mike Suckow. Let's start with you.
Good evening and welcome. I am Professor Mike Suckow, and I am teach in the Airline Management and Operations course, plan of study. I also have done a little bit of work in each of the other disciplines as well, and happy to entertain your questions today.
I'm Mike Davis.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dr. Mike Davis, and I'm actually in the Aeronautical Engineering Technology program. I'm acting as the associate head for the undergrad studies right now, but my normal teaching load is I actually teach in the AET courses as far as AT-376, which is basic turbines, and then AT-476, and then that is actually the advanced turbines, and I do teach a Lean Six Sigma advanced manufacturing course. So that's kind of it about me.
Hi, Damon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Damon Lercel. I'm a professor in the Unmanned Aerial Systems program. I also teach some classes in the AET area. I primarily teach in the program management, AT-409, so UAS project management and planning. And I also teach some of the first year UAS courses and some of the avionics courses that we offer here at Purdue. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Damon. For our student panelists, would you please each introduce yourselves and tell us a little about you? Good evening, Dutch.
Hi everyone, my name is Dutch Byrd. I am a second year student here at Purdue. I'm majoring in Unmanned Aerial Systems, and I'm from Jackson, Ohio, about 4.5 hours from here.
Hi there, Alex.
Hi everybody, I'm Alex Jeynes. I'm a sophomore here studying Airport Operations and Airline Management, and I'm from Traverse City, Michigan.
And last but not least, hi Brandon.
Hello, I'm Brandon Snyder. I'm a sophomore here studying Aeronautical Engineering Technology from Palm Beach, Florida.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay, let's get started by talking about some of the courses in our aviation-related majors. Professor Suckow, how are most of the major-specific courses in aviation and transportation technology designed? For example, are they lectures, labs, group projects? How are they formed?
So within the aviation management space and the 4 degrees that do that, a lot of the courses are lecture. We don't have some of the luxury of some of the really cool labs like our AET folks and UAS folks do. But having said that, we do have an airport that is right next door. And so we have essentially a teaching research type airport model for you. So those that are working in all aspects of aviation, we can do some hands-on experience with the ground operation side and working on the flight ops in the dispatch area and scheduling and some of those disciplines that support some of the other majors that we have out there. So it's a mix of hands-on lab type work, some simulation type work, and theoretical knowledge from a classroom perspective.
Thank you. Brandon, then Alex, and Dutch, what are some of the projects and labs that you have done as part of your coursework?
So starting off, looking at our Aeronautical Engineering Technology degree, all of your classes are really going to be separated into two sections, main components, those being your airframe side and your powerplant side. Getting that full variety of like that experience starting off here at Purdue. I started here my first semester with our AT-262 class, looking at power plants of single piston engines, and then going into a class looking at AT-208, which is aircraft materials. So really getting all different types of labs, as well as those lecture components, is the best thing that happens here at Purdue. Be able to make those transitions from the smaller aircraft to your large transport category aircraft.
Alex?
Yeah, then one of the projects I had the pleasure of working with was in our AT-252 class, which is our aviation projects. And that one's going to cater a little bit more for our management students, where we're going to collaborate, work together through over a 16-week long period to finalize our project. And we chose working with runway incursion and mitigations. So one thing we wanted to implement was a simplistic method to make it easier for people to navigate the airfield, whether you're working on the operations side or the aircraft side. All in all, trying to make it a more kind of simplistic process, and we were able to successfully come out with a cheaper outcome and alternative to what's currently available on the market.
And Dutch?
Yeah, so for the labs in unmanned aerial systems, you first start off working in doing simulator flights, so plugging into computer with a controller and really just learning to fly on the computer before going out and flying a real aircraft. So at the same time that you're doing these simulator flights, you're also working hands-on with drones in labs, learning more in depth about them, the cameras, and really just how a full depth analysis on how they work. That way, when it is time to go out and fly, you really have a good sense and knowledge on the drones. And then once you are built up proficiently in that knowledge, you then go out and do different flight labs where you're learning to maneuver the drones and just being able to become a way better pilot than you were when you first entered.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about our majors of our school. Professor Davis, how is Aeronautical Engineering Technology distinct from the other engineering technology majors in the Polytechnic?
Well, as far as our Aeronautical Engineering Technology, we focus on actually bringing the students in, and we've had a big change that took place with our plan of study as of 2020, and we designed it now to where students can actually, at the end of their 5th semester, if they would like to, they would be eligible to test for the FAA Part 147 Airframe and Power Plant Certificate. So that's one of the biggest differences with Aeronautical Engineering Technologies. We have that certification program, and it's just embedded within the AET plan of study. So the courses like AT-262 that Brandon mentioned earlier, that would be considered one of the Part 147 courses. 376, there's 19 courses that actually make up the plan of study that would make up the Part 147 criteria. So what we've done with that is that's allowed us to really open up a lot of internships with the FedExes, the UPSs, the Boeings, Gulfstream, because now those students can actually have that certificate in hand when they go to those internships at the end of that 5th semester. So it's really changed what we've been looking at. So that's probably the biggest difference between us and like the other engineering disciplines in Polytech.
Thank you. Professor Suckow, we have a few majors, especially for students wanting to get into careers in management in the aviation industry, including Airline Management Operations, Airport Management Operations, Aviation Management, and even Aerospace Financial Analysis. What is unique about the Polytechnic approach to studying management?
Well, first, a unique aspect of that is everything is focused on the aviation and aerospace industry. So, it's a very large domain. We have very large companies that operate within there when you go from the Boeings and the General Dynamics down to the airlines and the smallest airlines to fractional ownerships and all those types of things. And all of these positions require folks what we call ground ops and flight ops. And these are the back office type folks that are supporting the movement of this technology that tends to be the center of our industry, called an aircraft or a drone or something along those lines. So whether you buy them, finance them, schedule them, load them, we just came back from an airline in Cincinnati Atlas and just took a team of students down there to view the last 747 off the line, and they were fascinated by that piece of technology, but understanding that it's a pyramid effect. While you have that piece of technology and there's a few people on it, there's about 98 people underneath it that surface it, schedule it, pay for it, keep the records on it to keep it flying. So there's just all of these disciplines within the aviation management space tend to focus on and support that aspect of the industry. And that's what that's what's unique about what we do.
Excellent, thank you. We have a question. What opportunities are there to be at the airport within an aviation management major? Are there classes taught out there?
Yes, we have campus at the Purdue campus. The airport is on the southwest corner of campus, and it is a functioning airport. I tend to make the joke to people on campus that we're 20% of the land mass of campus. So we have a sizable presence out there, and we have a lot of operations. And within the buildings, we try to schedule as many classes as we can at the airport proper itself. Some of the challenges is some of our class sizes are getting somewhat big, so we need to expand a little bit and make some more capacity, but that's a good problem to have. But yes, many of your courses take place in the aviation space at the airport itself.
Excellent. Damon, Unmanned Aerial Systems is a major we have offered for several years now. Would you please give us a quick introduction to Unmanned Aerial Systems, and how soon and how often do students get to fly unmanned aircraft?
Okay, well, thanks for the question, Vicki. So our major is made up of 4 specific UAS courses. Each course has a lab component, so it's very hands-on, very application-based. And so similar to the question that was asked of Dr. Davis regarding AET, our major encompasses a lot of these components. So we have a management component, we have an operator component, we have a maintenance component, and a design component in UAS. So understanding, how to operate the technology safely in the airspace, how to manage the technology correctly, if you're collecting data, how to collect data properly, using the right tool to collect the data, and then analyzing the data as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of that. And so after the first semester, the students are the ones that go out and collect this data, conduct these missions, and we're also very cross-disciplinary in the UAS group. So we work with a lot of other majors across campus that are using drones as a tool to support some of their activities. So for instance, the construction management major, we work with them. They're using drones in the construction industry for surveying, 3D modeling, that type of thing. And we work with the civil engineering folks as well, so our students work with them to help them collect data, analyze the data correctly, agriculture. So the good thing about Purdue is there's a lot of opportunity, and the thing that I encourage all of our UAS students to do is to take advantage of the opportunities that Purdue offers. So while you're here, if you're getting a major in UAS, you may look at another major to get a certificate or a minor in an area that's using drone technology in their business applications. It just broadens your knowledge and provides even more employment opportunities in the future. From certification of new technologies, certification of aerospace, understanding the unmanned traffic management technology that's coming on board. It's very broad. There's a lot of opportunities to learn about that and actually applying that in a lot of different use cases. Did I answer your question, Vicki?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Professor Davis, we have a couple of questions that are delving into AET a little bit deeper.
Okay.
What percentage of AET students take the A&P exam during or after their program of study? And could you talk about the main differences between AET and aeronautical astro engineering in the College of Engineering?
Sure. Actually, if you were to look at FAA statistics right now, we would be about a 50% rate of students that actually go after the A&P certificate once they graduate. Now, see, here we are with the new plan of study. So at one point, see, it was a 4-year program, so they wouldn't be able to even test for that certificate until the end of the 4th year. Now with the update, they can test at the end of the 5th, like I had mentioned earlier. So I really do expect to see more and more of our students actually pick up and go after that certificate. At least when I poll the classes when we're talking about it, I get a lot of hands that are up and interested in taking care of that. So the interesting thing about this, even just a regular Part 147 school right now, only about half of the students that graduate out of those programs go after their airframe and power plant certificate. So we're right there as a 4-year institution. We're right there with a straight up Part 147. But the thing that's really interesting about our AET side is once you move on into the last 3 semesters, now you're going to be looking at the advanced side of the aeronautical engineering. So you're more into the engineering side of this, the design work. Dr. Ropp has the hangar of the future, which we take some of the things that we're experimenting with in there and moving it over to the power plant lab, things like that. So we actually, in fact, if you'd have been around campus today, the test cell had a Lycoming 320 running most of the day in there. So it was quite evident that we were up to something. And it kind of sounded like the airplane movie with that background with the airplane sound. So that was most of the day. And then that is a project that we're working on with some alternative fuels. But then as far as the main difference between Astro and Aero and us is that they're looking at mainly the design work, the advancement of the aeronautical and astronautics, and then where we are actually taking and applying those tools. So a lot of our students can still and do get hired as engineering folks because they know that they understand. And I guess the best way to describe it is to say that our AET students are like liaisons. So they understand the engineering side of it, plus they understand the technical side, so they can relate to the technicians and they can also relate to the engineers. So, or we might say they're the interpreters. So, and keep everybody focused toward that end goal of having a safe, airworthy product. So, we've got some of our students are design engineers at some of the major airlines there, or the manufacturers. We've got design engineers out at Boeing. We've got, and then of course the one thing that we never talk about, and even in the engineering disciplines, they forget to mention to some of their students that we still have to design support equipment and tooling and all that. So this is where a lot of our students will actually fit in. So the really neat thing about the program is, and I tell my students, Brandon will back me up on this, that really this time in history is just a perfect storm as far as everybody needs the people and the students that we're putting out into industry. So I tell them they should never want for a job, and it's always going to be a good paying job once they're done. So they kind of pick what niche they would like to go into as far as aviation. So that's kind of the main differences. And to be honest, we have a lot of the Aero students that do come over, and some of them double major because they know that it's important they go after the airframe and power plant certificate. They understand that, to be quite blunt, we have the toys and we get to make noise. So that's kind of how that works out.
Absolutely. And leading off of that question then, what is the differences between getting your A&P license as opposed to coming here for the AET major for your bachelor's degree?
Okay, so yes, like I mentioned, you could go to a straight Part 147 school, and it's usually a 1 to 2 year program. And then when you're done with that, you could possibly have an associate degree. You'll have your certificate if you want to pursue it. But what makes us unique is that you can still get that airframe and power plant certificate, but then we take you to the advanced steps that would get you into those other higher paying and some of those different jobs. Because some people do want to turn wrenches on aircraft their entire life, or some people want to start out in that, so may go to like a Delta Tech Ops or United Tech Ops where they're actually learning the ropes and then working on the aircraft. But then they want to move on into other areas, and this program would enable them to have that education to move on into those other areas.
Great, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Leading on, Professor Suckow, do our aviation majors have a senior capstone project requirement, and is it incorporated in the plans of study?
Yes. So yeah, all of our programs do have a capstone type experience, and it's dependent upon the professor and the way that they structure that capstone, but it is generally a semester long, and it is generally a project based. Sometimes it could be sponsored by an industry partner when we're coordinating with an industry partner and trying to solve the problem that they pose or they bring to the table. But yes, capstone courses are in all of our programs.
Thank you. And sticking with the aviation major, we have a couple of management questions. What would be a good occupation with a degree from aviation management or one of our management majors?
Pretty much unlimited. So we have opportunities for folks to go into an organization called ISTAT, which is the International Society of Transport Aircraft Traders, and they are the ones that really buy and sell airplanes. They are the major funding arms to the acquisition of buying and selling airplanes and engines and those types of things around the world. You have revenue management is a major entry position into the airlines. So the airlines have a route planning, revenue management planning area. So a lot of folks go into there and they hire at scale. We have consulting firms that come in and hire folks working in the consulting space. We have airports coming in, and you can go work for an airport in your local community, and they will generally hire folks in the operations area to help run the airport, go out and do the safety checks in the morning, and maintain the lights and the equipment and all those types of things. So there is just pretty much unlimited opportunity with the AM degree to go out into different sectors. That the beauty of aviation management is so broad, is just it supports in the pyramid many functions going on. Work in reservations, you can work in accounting, you can work in finance, you can work in all those areas.
Thank you. Professor Davis, is there a professional work or internship experience requirement for our majors, and how do most aviation technology students accomplish this?
There is a requirement for internships. Now, it's pretty broad requirement because depending on whether it's AET, UAS, or management is kind of where we're going to look at tailoring their internship. So, for instance, I've been working with FedEx, and this is one thing that another reason we changed that plan of study to where the certificates could be picked up sooner, because now we've got some things set up to where our students can intern with the local FedEx in Indianapolis. And their request from their HR department was to have our students already have that certificate. Now, they're not going to go down there and sign off airworthiness on MD-11s and 777s and all that. They're just going to work with the maintenance folks there at FedEx and kind of learn the ropes and see what's all involved with dispatching the equipment and what they would go through. So really what they're looking at there is just, the UPS does the same thing. We've had students do internships with the Textrons. In fact, Textron and Indy and Wichita are the Textron period as an entire company is fantastic for offering our students a lot of internships. And the thing that kind of goes along with this, where I mentioned before, as far as some folks decide they want to work in the tech ops and those type things, but here's what's going on in the maintenance world. So we've heard all about the pilot shortage. We're actually worse off as far as the maintainer and technician shortage. So we're the average age for those technicians out there is 58 to like 63, 64. So a bunch of them are getting ready to hit the road and retire. So there is a huge need for technicians and maintainers and everybody in the aeronautical side. But then on the management side, like Professor Suckow said, there's just a tremendous need for anybody in the aviation world at this point. So UAS, look at that's growing leaps and bounds all the time. So there's just no shortage of need. but it's just the internships we ask and we try to have those internships apply to whatever their plan of study is. So now, there's so many wide array things in the aviation world. I mean, if they've done, let's say they've even worked with their parents over a summer during some, we've used that as acceptable for an internship. It's just we have an hour requirement, so it's like 140 hours minimum that they would have to complete, and then once we document that, then that would go against their transcript or in their transcript that they had complied with and completed the internship. So that's really the need and the requirements, and we're just looking for students to have hands-on experience and get out there and kind of see what the working world is like.
Hey Vicki, this is Damon. Could I jump in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another area of opportunity where we're finding students going as well is not only does the industry need people, but the regulatory agency needs people. So the FAA is also hiring our graduates. NASA is hiring our graduates. We have some students that are working with NASA on the future unmanned traffic management system, developing that. We have students that are working for ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. They're working. I have a couple of UAS students that are actually working for the office in Washington, D.C., working on policy related to UAS operations. So there's just a lot of opportunity in aviation, across the board. And then when you look at advanced air mobility, the new players that are coming in there, Joby, Google, Facebook is even, looking at using drones. So there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of investment being made as well. So the future looks very, very bright.
Absolutely. And throwing it over to our students, so Dutch, then Brandon, then Alex, could you tell us about your experience with an internship or other real-world experience? Where did you go, and how did your studies at Purdue translate into that working experience? And then also talk about how you might have obtained that experience as well.
Yeah. So I haven't had an actual internship yet. I've applied this semester for one for this coming summer. So the one that I've applied to is through NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I actually have picked up a minor in Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences. What kind of got me to get that was I saw that that's where the drone was and that there was data to be collected there. And so I kind of picked that up, and with my major in Unmanned Aerial Systems and a minor in EAPS, or Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences, I saw NOAA was on the front line of using drones in part of their operation. So I'm going to hear back in April, beginning of April, and I'm really hoping to hear a yes. But I believe just all of the technology that I've been exposed to through labs, lecture, and really getting that hands-on experience have prepared me to at least take the first step. And then once I'm in that internship, anything that I'm not for sure of or I don't know of, I am confident that I will be learning those things along the way, and I'll be able to bring that back with me that next semester and be able to apply that in my studies, or if research comes up or any other projects that comes up, I'll be able to apply what I learned here to take to my internship, and then what I learn at my internship, I'll be able to bring back here and apply even further.
Brandon?
For me, so my aviation experience kind of started in high school. It hasn't been mainly focused with the more engineering side of things, but it's kind of more been on the management side of things. So I worked at a fixed-based operator, or an FBO, up at my home in Western New York during my time in high school as well as my first year in college. So getting that experience, getting the aviation experience, working around airplanes, kind of getting the feel of everything, although it wasn't fully related, you have those relationships working right near a flight school in a maintenance shop. I'm able to go in there, see what they're doing, being able to look at, okay, how does this work and how can I transfer this into my work? How can this help my work here at Purdue? Looking forward for me, I'm currently in the process of looking at a co-op for Gulfstream Aerospace for a three rotations during my time here in college, in which it would be in the operations engineering department. There's currently one student who I good friends with who's told me highly about it, and actually said that all of the experience that they do gain there is severely impactful for what goes on here at Purdue, especially with Gulfstream Aerospace doing a lot of it being airframe as well as some power plant work. Being able to get that experience while you're out in the industry, and then come back here to Purdue, be able to apply that experience into your advanced classes, is really impactful to your learning here at the university.
Alex?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough this past summer to have an internship back at my hometown airport. It's a small Part 139 in northern Michigan, Cherry Capital Airport. And the airport director here actually started the operations department there way back in the early 2000s. So that was kind of my connection there, which I thought was really unique. I got that internship on a wing and a prayer. It was getting my resume out there, finding out, they were offering it. So it was apply. Be persistent, be relentless, that's for sure. One big takeaway from that was you definitely make a lot of mistakes at the very beginning. And the whole point of getting out into industry is to learn early on, and through that internship, definitely 300 plus hours later, you definitely learn a lot. Part 139 inspections, your daily self-inspections, perimeter checks, posting NOTAMs, doing ARF inspections, doing stuff like that was all stuff that we learned in the classroom, and being able to actually apply that to a real-world situation. It was pretty cool. Basically, on my last day, I was able to say, okay, I'm an an operations director, and I was able to physically apply all that to my day-to-day there. And being able to coordinate with the Blue Angels is also a very big highlight. I was fortunate enough to sit in on a couple safety briefings with them, and we had a hometown air show, which was really cool. That was definitely one of the highlights for mine. I believe I answered the question, Vicki. Is there more to it?
That was great. Thank you.
Vicki, just to add one more thing to the internship, it's amazing over the years how many of those internships that students have been to that end up leading to a full-time position coming out of school.
Absolutely. Professor Suckow, since we've been talking about internships, what types of connections to industry partners do faculty have to help students? And how do they do that?
Well, one of the unique aspects of our program and our faculty is a lot of them have a lot of industry background. So a lot of our professors actually come from industry, and then while they're earning their academic credentials, and are here now as researchers and faculty members. In one of my roles as an assistant head for engagement, I entertain and answer the phone for companies all over the country and all over the world. And we are working, I respond weekly to requests from airlines and different manufacturing and anybody that's of interest, and then I will connect them to the subject matter experts for opportunities for students. And one of the big things that we work hard to do is to try and convince the companies that the first thing you want to do is start with some internships. Second thing you want to do is hire one, and the third thing is you'll be back for more. And that recipe has been very, very successful. I joke with Dr. Davis and to say this is the year of aeronautical engineering technology. We have had, even though airlines have multiple demands, they are starting, because we are a comprehensive university, they are starting to do comprehensive partnerships, and they are starting to look, when they come to campus, not just recruit one space, they are recruiting the breadth and scope of what we need. So they're looking at, again, the triangle of flight ops, tech ops, and ground ops. And whether, it doesn't matter what the platform is, whether it's an airplane or an unmanned system or those types of things. So, and as Dr. Lercel has mentioned, the advanced air mobility space is growing rapidly, and there's just more and more opportunity in that. And as they start to come off the line from production and they start to get those airworthiness certificates and they start to be operating, that's when they're going to need us to get out there and operate them legally in the airspace and maintain them going forward. So it's an awesome opportunity, and Purdue is blessed with a fantastic reputation. So it's really easy to get on the track there, and it's really easy for me to have these students go out there and be successful. So my job is pretty easy. I just connect the dots.
Alex, then Brandon, then Dutch, will you talk a little bit about our career fairs that we have both here in the school, on campus, company connections that you've been able to make while you've been a student here?
Yeah, so to begin with, every semester Purdue hosts a career fair for all the students, and that is when we're going to have major players come in, whether it's for ATs, management students, and professional flight. These major companies come in, and we will talk to the recruiters, kind of get a feel for what that company is going to be like. And obviously, it's a Q&A, quick 45-second sales pitch to them, give them the resume, keep building from there. Some personal connections is I'm working with American Airlines to secure a dispatching internship this summer in my hometown airport. That's just kind of my quick rundown on it. I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, so adding off of what Alex said, really hitting more the engineering side of things. So we obviously will have our aviation career fair, but there is also the Polytechnic career fair, in which that is actually tomorrow. So I'll be over there talking to Gulfstream, talking to a few other companies, putting my name out there. The biggest thing you can do, no matter you're a freshman or you're a senior, is put your name out there, start talking to these companies, get used to talking to them, make those connections. They're there for the connections. They want Purdue students. They know that if you put yourself out there, that you provide yourself with everything that you have, it's going to go a long way. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, is get yourself out there no matter how early you are in your career.
Yeah, and to add on to what both of they said, something I've noticed is when I first came here, when looking at the career fairs, Vicki does a nice job of telling us which companies are going to be there and what disciplines they're looking for. And what I noticed was there wasn't a whole lot of UAS when I first got here. And then with each career fair that's passing by, more and more people are looking for UAS, and more are looking for all the other disciplines as well. So it's rapidly growing, and like Brandon said, get yourself out there. Don't hesitate to take that step, even if it may seem a little scary at first. But I can tell you, taking that step and just reaching out and talking to someone, you never know where that's going to lead. And sometimes it can lead to an internship or a lifelong connection that you're going to make with a company or just an individual.
Yeah, Vicki, can I add on to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, in UAS, we don't have an internship requirement per se, but there are plenty of opportunities to do things here locally with companies. We have a couple of companies here locally that some of the UAS students have started, and they've attracted investment money. They're developing technologies and they're growing, and they're actually looking to hire some of our students. Likewise, as I mentioned earlier, other disciplines across Purdue are using drone technology as a tool, but they're not so good at aviating. They're not aviators. So they hire our students to support their flight operations over the summer. So if the School of Agriculture is doing a research project that requires them to use a drone to capture data, they hire our students to run the flight operation, the maintenance of the vehicles, the integration of the sensors, getting the airspace approvals, the NOTAMs, all that, civil engineering. And we even have students that are doing work with the Indiana Department of Transportation where they're using drones to inspect infrastructure, analyze data. So there's a lot of opportunity, to do that type of work while you're here at Purdue as well, and make money. They pay, so it's all a good thing.
Absolutely.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
The last career fair last semester, we actually had, I'll just say that it was a large American-based aircraft manufacturer. You can guess who that might be, but they walked in the door and the first thing out of his mouth is, I need 1,000 students to hire today. So I was a little short, but that's the kind of need that's out there, and Purdue is where they come looking.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sticking with that, Professor Davis, can you talk a little bit about the curriculum in AET, how that incorporates hands-on experiences, labs, that sort of thing?
Sure. So as far as the plan of study for AET, we start out with everyone and all the plans of study go through AT 100. So we've got some 100 base courses. So if you walk in as a freshman, you would be in that. And the way we look at that is it's kind of a way of building a community. So we have, all the disciplines are in those 100 level classes, and it kind of just introduces them to what the other plans of studies are doing. and kind of let everybody know, meet and greet, make friends, and that type of stuff. But then as you start branching out into the AET side of it, you're going to go to like AT-116, and that's going to be aircraft systems and things like that. Kind of get you the groundwork. It's still just a lecture-based course. But then as we go a little bit further along, now you're going to get lectures/labs. And most of the labs are between 3 and 4 hours. And during those lab periods, for instance, on the turbine side, we're going to go out there, and I've got, on 376, we've got different engine product out there. So we've got PT6s, turboprops, we've got turbojets. And the students actually get a chance to touch those, disassemble those. We look at them as far as from an inspection criteria. And then I do scare them because I tell them that those engines have to go back and run. Okay, I'm not really serious, but I do have an engine of each type that's on a stand or in a test cell that we run so they can actually see how that engine should operate. So then, as I mentioned before, they would go on through the advanced side of this. So they're going to go into the hangar of the future, which is in large aircraft systems with Dr. Rob. We have actually and he actually handles the capstone process for the AET side. So on, as Professor Suckow had mentioned earlier with the capstones, we are actually working with a lot of industry. In fact, there's one company that we had worked with over the last few years, and right now they've got over 50 patents globally that have come out of the capstone work that we've done there at Purdue. So we've got some of the vendors and suppliers of engine components and fuel pumps and fuel controls. They're in here on a regular basis, and they're actually getting ready to fund, when we retire one of our aircraft, we're going to pull the number 1 engine off of it, and it will go on a test cell for more testing. So the number 2 engine will go to the power plant lab for inspection, tear down, because it's had a bit of a problem. So, but the other engine will go on a new test cell, and it will be running it indefinitely. Just doing some of the things we're testing on that for the company will be things that we may see on aircraft and engines in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's kind of how our curriculum is laid out. So you get old and new. So you get brought up in kind of how the systems are, and then we take you to the advanced stuff, and that's where we can start introducing a lot of the newer technology.
Does a student coming into AET need any kind of prior hands-on tech experience?
Well, it would always be beneficial, but they don't necessarily need that previous. So we're going to teach them what they need to know. So like I said, we start out very basic. Now, Brandon will tell you about the character building exercise that he went through just recently, which is to learn how to safety wire components. So we just talk about that, but we show them how to do that. We talk about hardware, we talk about fittings, and they actually make their own lines and learn how to do that. So that's what the hands-on entails as far as the whole AET curriculum.
Thank you.
You bet.
Professor Suckow, same question regarding curriculum to you for the 4 management majors. How do they?
So they start out pretty much the same at the 100 level again. So we have general systems courses. We want them to get the exposure to understanding what we would call as the ecosystem of aviation. So it's tech ops, flight ops, ground ops, and then from there they start moving into more of their specialized areas. So if they're going to get into data, if they're going to get into financial analysis, if they're going to get into operations, there's a suite of courses that you can select to go into those pathways, if you will. But at the first couple of years, it's pretty standardized across the board, and then the last 2 years is when you start to specialize with your coursework and the professors that you're working with.
Thank you. And is there any hands-on projects or experiences that our management majors get to experience?
Well, in some of the courses they run an airline simulation laboratory, so they're running a simulation modeling experience. Then the data side of the house, they're running using actual FAA data and running some revenue management analysis and those types of things. in our airline operations class, you know, we're working on how to manage a fleet of 1,000 aircraft and 10,000 pilots and 20,000 flight attendants, and how do you schedule all those people? And you know, unfortunately, how do we prevent what happened with Southwest and those types of things with some of the systems that are out there? So you have a little bit of knowledge on that front. So yeah, it's pretty broad spectrum as far as opportunities and where the interest of the students lie. We've had consulting company come in, Oliver Wyman, and you know, a lot of students work with them, and they're heavy on the recruiting side. So it really is customized to the interest and the specialties of the students and then the particular faculty for those courses.
Thank you very much. Alex, then Dutch, then Brandon, what have been your favorite aspects of studying in your major?
I think one of my favorite aspects of it was I was able to take a 359 class, and that was our Introduction to Airport Operations, and that was really beneficial to me coming directly from my internship and then having a class that was specifically about a reflection of my internship, essentially, really stuck out to me. That was one thing that really stood out, especially in the developmental phase. There was aspects to it that you could understand during lecture, that, okay, this is why I was able to do this, and this is why we were doing this. And seeing kind of the pieces of the puzzle all come together on a very broad spectrum of what aviation management is.
Dutch?
Yeah, I'd say probably my favorite part is getting to fly all the different drones that we have. So we have multiple DJI drones. We have the Mavic 2 Pros, M210s, and then M300s. And then we actually just this semester got Skydios, so those are super fun. And just learning how to fly all those systems, and even the bigger systems like the M300s and M210s, learning all the different sensors we're able to put on those and all the different data we're able to collect. And on top of that, learning more in depth about them, not just flying them, but how different components work. And currently in the course that I'm in right now, most of our labs is on actually building aircraft. We're building our own drones right now. We're kind of going through the steps of rewiring them, programming the flight controllers, and really it's giving me a better understanding of how these complex like commercial drones are put together, the insides of them, and it's allowing me to have a better understanding overall of how drones work. So I think just getting the hands-on experience of not only flying the drones, but also learning in depth how all the electronics on the inside work as well.
For me, it really hits on like the hands-on experience. So I've always had that mechanical background. And really coming here to Purdue, learning all that hands-on experience, taking what you learn in lecture, and that same week, you get to take what you learn there and go put that into practice. So taking those theoretical concepts and putting them into action has really been the most beneficial thing to me. I have always learned from doing things on my own, doing things with my hands, making sure it actually works. Rather than just seeing it on a screen in lecture, you take that and put it into practice. So I've always had, that's probably been the best part for me, is really taking what goes on in lecture and adapting that to how it'll work out in the industry.
Thank you very much. Focusing on the majors, for each of the professors, we'll start with Professor Davis, then Professor Lercel, and then lastly, Professor Suckow. What careers do graduates in each of your major areas do they pursue once they have graduated?
Actually, we can look about anywhere out there right now, Vicki, and we're going to find our students working for the Gulfstreams. For instance, the two people from representing Gulfstream that are here today and tomorrow, they're actually our students. So they graduated just a few years ago. So they've been in here regularly hiring additional Purdue students. And then the Boeings and some of those companies that I mentioned previous, there are Purdue representatives at each one of those. And when we start looking at our, we've got an ABI and an ABET accreditation in the different plans of study here. So we've got an industry advisory board, and we pull those folks from industry, and they're a lot of them are Purdue alum, and they're just representing their companies and the advisory board and how we can continue to grow the whole program and advance. And then the one thing the students all mentioned is the different areas. One of the things we try to brand as far as the Purdue brand is critical thinking, because we want our students to be able to go out there, think through the process, come up with basically a correction for, if we've got a system that's got an issue, we've got a program that's got a process improvement, any of those type things, we want them to be able to think through it and come up with those solutions. And actually, that's where a lot of our I guess, claim to fame would be. And then, but yeah, I can sit here and just start listing off companies. One right here in town, GE, I can't tell you how many folks they have hired. And a lot of them have gone in there as technicians, but then a lot of those students have moved on into other GE areas. For instance, two of those students that started out in AET, they went to the GE plant here in town, which is, they actually build the LEAP engine for the 737 MAX and also the A321neo. But those students have gone to GE, and then they've actually moved on. So some of them have gone to Peebles, Ohio, which is the test facility and the quality evaluations of the engines before they're certified to go on wing. Some folks have gone on wing support, and which is like a customer service rep. So they would be the resident expert to an airline, to the military, whatever. And then, so it's just a huge area across the world. So the globe, we can find Purdue students around the globe. So.
Mr. Lercel?
Yeah, I think I mentioned some of the places where our students are working, working at the different regulatory agencies, NASA, FAA, ICAO. We have students, that have gone to work doing stuff with Amazon. We have students that have gone to work for the National Park Service in their aviation division, so using drones to help manage the parks. Search and rescue type applications. We have students that are working for many different DOT agencies, both here in Indiana and surrounding states as well, where they're using drone technology to help manage those assets. We have students that are working for some of the advanced air mobility startups. One of the aspects of UAS is it's evolving and still developing. So it's very entrepreneurial. So we weave an entrepreneurial aspect into our program as well. And Purdue actually has one of the top certificates of entrepreneurship in the nation that students can get while they're here, and that's very popular with our UAS students as well. So we've had students that have, collaborated, met other students here in other areas. So we've had School of Aviation students meet engineering students here. They had an idea and they went and started a company. And, Purdue has a very strong ecosystem here for, developing startup companies, idea generation, and also helping those students get funding for their ideas as well. So it's broad, and the other thing I like to tell my students is that, the drone is a tool that provides an opportunity for non-aviation companies to somehow improve their business, either save money, do it safer, etc. Well, those companies are typically non-aviation companies. They don't know anything about the FAA. They don't know how to apply the right disciplines, understand the airspace. So a lot of those companies that see drone technology as an opportunity are hiring our students to help lead the way for them into adopting this technology into their organization. So construction companies is a big one for sure. So, Clayco, Bechtel, we have students working for a lot of those types of construction companies. So that's why I mentioned earlier, if you're here, if you're a student, take advantage of some of the different offerings, pick up a certificate or a minor in a different area, like Dutch mentioned with NOAA, because it just makes you that much more valuable and gives you a lot more opportunities out there in the world.
Professor Suckow?
We can we can run the list. American, Delta, United, Southwest, Atlas, FedEx, UPS, Republic, Envoy, Frontier, Allegiant, JetBlue, high-stat companies, GE Capital. Pick an airport. We probably have a grad there as well. Consulting companies, Oliver Wyman, Brown, Landerman Brown. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's the breadth and scope of companies that are looking for folks that speak, well, I'm just going to say aviation and understand the aviation ecosystem and not the specific aspect of the pilot perspective of it, because it's all that support staff and functions that need to make to allow that technology to operate legally in the sky. We're there. Those are the saying is the sky's the limit, but the new saying is, don't tell me the sky's the limit when there's footprints on the moon. So there is just unlimited opportunity here.
Absolutely. And can you tell me, for our students in all of our majors, what other departmental requirements as far as courses go do they have to meet for their curriculum? Those other departmental courses.
You mean as in the gen ed type stuff, as in
Right.
your
Yes.
chemistry or your science and your humanities and your English and your literature. So yeah, the degree programs are generally 120 hours, if you will. 60 of those hours are in the aviation technology or aerospace management, or out at the airport in the SATT space, and the other 60 hours are generally on campus. So you're taking your courses. If you have a language course, humanities course, a science course, a math course, all those types of things. So it's a pretty even split on the number of credit hours. And of course, a lot of folks come in with advanced AP credit and those types of things, and that's where they can get a lot of credit for that stuff.
Thank you. Professor Davis, does AET offer fundamental courses like physics, applied math, numerical analysis, physics, aerodynamics, PDE, or in aerodynamics, and so on?
Well, actually, as far as like our physics and some of our math courses, those are going to be up on campus. And then we incorporate it into the plan of study. And then as we're looking at our continuous improvement process, we start looking at, in fact, I've even thrown it out, we're looking at maybe bringing in a thermodynamics course and that type of stuff, just to, on the advanced side. It wouldn't be part of the earlier 5 semesters, but it would be more of the advanced. And some of the, the students are going to take statistics courses, because, we know how important that is, and the analysis of the, whether it's testing or whatever we're doing, the statistics would be playing into that at any time. So those are some of the courses that we would have, that we leverage our resources up on main campus, but they are still very much a part of our AET plan study.
Thank you. Professor Suckow, can you talk about the combined degree, lovingly also known as 3+2 or 4+1, depending on who you're talking to?
Do we have to talk about that?
You want to handle that, Dr. Davis, or you want me to?
Sure. I'll tell you what, you start it and I'll finish it.
So one of the unique programs that we offer here is an opportunity for students to decide in their senior year if they want to continue on towards and earn a master's degree. A traditional master's is a kind of a 2-year program, but we would allow some of the course credits. They would not count towards your undergraduate, but while you're taking them, they would count towards your graduate degree. So before you've been accepted to grad school, you can earn some credits. And that allows you to accelerate and complete your master's degree in a 5th year, if you will. So that's kind of how we frame that. So that's a unique opportunity for folks. And it has created a bit of a pay bump for folks that go into starting level positions with a master's as opposed to a bachelor's. Some of the industry companies that we just named are giving credit for that in their starting pay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good explanation there, sir. So, and then, they really need to make that decision pretty early as they're looking at it. And then, of course, it kind of plays into if somebody's coming in any of the plans of study and they're trying to complete it in maybe the degree in 3 because they would have to look at the summer courses and those type things. But that would be a definite opportunity to look at that 3+2, and then maybe they're even thinking about sticking around for that PhD too.
Absolutely. Professor Davis, we had a question about AET and what are the most challenging courses and why, and I'd also like to throw that to Brandon as well.
Why don't you hit Brandon first, and then I'll back him up.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of hard to really answer that because I'm kind of in as a sophomore. I haven't really hit all the classes, although I am hitting all the Part 147 A&P preparation classes to be able to take my A&P after my 5th semester, which would be next fall. I haven't really hit any of those difficult courses yet. All the courses, the great thing about it is they're a mix of lecture and lab. If you don't work in lab, it's going to be done in lecture. So it's kind of a trade-off of getting a lot of homework in lecture versus just, instead of having homework in lecture, what you learn in lecture, you just implant all of that into all your lab work. So it's it kind of puts it all together, funnels it into one. I wouldn't say there's a hard class to take or not one that I've experienced yet. Davis can definitely talk about that.
So actually what we would say is some of the more challenging might be like an AT-205 because that's going to be statics for aerostructures. And they get to looking at forces and strength of materials and things like that in those courses. Then that goes on to 308, which is advanced. Really, they get into more of the analysis and the tensile analysis and the stresses and the structures of how different things fail. And then as we start looking into like the AT-272 composite courses, we're looking at structural failure modes for how composites fail in that, and then the advanced composite courses. And mainly, we are blessed with faculty there that love their job and they love sharing that knowledge with the students. I think you guys will back me up on that, right? So no pressure. But, I think the majority of us look forward to coming into work every day and working with the students because we take pride in working with these young folks, and then we know that they're going to go out and represent us as far as Purdue SATT, and we will just be able to live off of that and enjoy that for the rest of our lives, hopefully fairly long. But we can actually grow that. But the main thing that we see on classes is, we have students that maybe don't take their college career serious at times. So we do have a way of getting folks' attention as far as making sure they're in class, right, Brandon? And then as far as the Part 147 requirements have changed in September. It used to be we had to count every seat hour, but now we're looking at it from a competency-based standpoint. So the students, we still require them to be in class. Of course, Purdue, as a university, requires people to come to class. That's the expectation. But the students in the AET program, the expectation is for them to be there. And then let's say Brandon was to miss a lab or something, then we would make up that 3-hour lab or that 4-hour lab, whatever it would be. And then that way they never would run a chance of missing out on those projects and that material that would have been taught.
Thank you. So I'd like to talk to students and hear from them about class sizes, what they have looked like for your classes, both AET and in those other departmental courses. We'll start with Alex, then Brandon, then Dutch.
Yeah, so once you arrive here on campus as a freshman, you're going to be in your 100 level AT classes, which those are going to range between probably about 150 to just over 200 students. So those are going to be your really large lecture halls. And once you start working into your 200 to 300 level classes, this is when you're really going to get down, especially into management, and you start kind of going to different avenues. You're really going to get down to right around 30 students to a class. Collectively, that's kind of where Purdue likes to seat, or SAT especially likes to seat a lot of us management majors, is keep the small classes, and kind of allows you a little bit more of a one-on-one relationship with your professor. I know it's definitely different for you other majors, but
Yeah, for me, I'd say looking into obviously your 100 level classes are going to be more your large scale classes. For AET, they kind of start out, most start small. Most of your lectures are going to be at 70 students max for those lectures. Those classes that have the lab components, the great thing about those labs is that they're much smaller. You get more of that personal experience, easily able to talk to the professor. You'll have classes that'll be 10 kids, you have classes that maybe 15, but you're never going to have large labs. That's the great thing about it. It really hits the information deeper into all of our brains basically. So really able to make those connections with the professors is easily done in all of our labs as well as lectures.
Yeah, and for UAS, it's similar to Alex. We actually only have probably 30-ish students per class, and when you break that down into 2 labs, that's 15-ish per student, and it really gives you time to build relations with other students, because in your labs you're going to be working on group projects, doing group flights where someone's a VO for you and you're a VO for them while they're flying in. So it's not too big in UAS, with the program only being roughly 7 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong, Vicki, but we are still building and building. But as of right now, it's similar to management in that when you get down to your discipline-specific classes in UAS, you're looking right about 30.
Thank you. So last question I'm going to ask, and this is for every one of you. What advice do you have for future aviation technology students to be successful? Professor Davis, we're going to start with you.
Okay, the main thing there is come prepared to learn, and then we're going to help you get those classes you need, whatever plan of study it is, and there's plenty of folks around that can answer any questions. So the main thing I would like to get across is please don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help. If there's concern, Brandon can speak to it. I spent a lecture period the other day just going over transcripts and what to look forward to make sure they're on schedule to graduate on time and those type things. So that's the main thing, is just don't be afraid to ask questions, because I'm looking in the aviation world, there's been people that did not ask questions, and we've brought down aircraft because they didn't find out the truth, and so all that. So my main thing is just jump in there, be ready to learn, and hang on.
Professor Lercel?
Yeah, I would say, get involved. When you come to Purdue, get involved. There's a lot of opportunity, within the School of Aviation, but there's a lot of opportunity, outside of the school as well, where you'll find students that have, common interests, maybe with a different perspective. So get involved. As Dr. Davis said, be prepared to work. We do challenge you. We're gonna, ask you to get outside your comfort zone, and maybe do some things that are different. But those are the things that, help you grow, learn, and prepare you for a long career, a successful career in aviation.
Professor Suckow?
I would say, echoing my colleagues here, but get to know your professors. One of the unique aspects of this program is its size and the fact that it almost has its own campus within a campus. And so that's a unique opportunity. And when you get into your specialties, as the class sizes get smaller, you have a very unique opportunity to get to know your professors more and more. And the professors move from being professors to being mentors and coaches. And when you get to that level of relationship, then I have students call me now that are graduated 15 years, 20 years, and we talk about things still as a mentor to them 20 years later. Although I'm learning from them because they're in senior management positions, they still call me and ask for advice, and that's the unique attribute of this program and the size of this program and some of the things that we can offer.
Thank you. Dutch?
Yeah, so kind of just similar to what all they said, don't be hesitant. Step outside your comfort zone. Introduce yourself to professors. I've seen a lot of times that leads to more opportunities, more than that you don't even know what's coming. And on top of that, don't limit yourself. This is a Big Ten university, and that comes with a lot of opportunities, some that I never even imagined coming here. So don't limit yourself, and don't hesitate to go outside your comfort zone. Introduce yourself to people, ask questions. Yeah, I think that would be my main thing.
Brandon?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing really for me was just to make sure to get involved. Starting out when you're going from high school, transferring into college, and maybe maybe wary of how it's going to go, how it started out. That's kind of how I felt. But really making sure you get involved, start meeting new people. With over 40,000 students on campus, you're going to see a new person every single day when you're walking to class. So it's always a great way to start making those connections, be a part of a few clubs. I'm a part of a few in aviation as well as those that are on the main campus. We have over 10,000 clubs. And if there's a club that you want to join and that we don't have it, we're always welcome to adding more clubs to our list. So making sure you get yourself out there, start getting involved, meeting new people that are just in aviation as well as those that are just in Purdue in different majors.
Thank you. And Alex?
Yeah, like my fellow student said, make sure you're involved, get yourself out there, definitely put yourself in the position to present yourself in a manner that's going to help you down the road. Go to office hours, be that student that's there, ask questions, be attentive in the classroom. There's one really unique piece about campus that, you all will get to see it someday, as there's a half-built PE. And that symbolizes that our education is never done. And that was something that really stuck with me after I learned that here as students, it is our job to continuously learn. And then once we hit industry, continue to learn and reciprocate that and make sure our colleagues around us understand that our job is never fully complete. At the end of the day, we get to go home, but the next day is a new day, new challenge, new set of goals to get done. We're continually growing, and it's really important to make sure that you put yourself out there, put yourself in a successful situation, and continue to work. Above all, continue to work.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I apologize for going a little bit over, but I wanted to make sure we hit a lot of these questions. That wraps up our discussion tonight. Thanks to all of you for watching at home and for submitting questions. We hope you gained some good insight about the majors in Purdue School of Aviation and Transportation Technology. Thank you again to our awesome panelists for joining us and sharing their insight and experiences as well. And thanks as well to John O'Malley, our technical director, for all the behind the scenes work. As I mentioned before, please feel free to send us an email at techrecruit@purdue.edu if you have any additional questions for us. We hope that you will join us for one or more of the many events for admitted students, including Purdue's For Me, which is an opportunity to visit campus with your family. There are also many online information sessions and student-to-student chats. You can find information for all of those opportunities on our admitted student information page. Tune in to upcoming YouTube broadcasts, including Professional Flight on February 14th, Women in Technology on March 7th, and Diversity in the Polytechnic on March 8th. Finally, on April 12th, a YouTube broadcast will focus on student life at Purdue for all students admitted to Polytechnic majors. All the broadcasts are listed online at polytechnic.purdue.edu/live. And just a quick reminder, your deadline to accept your offer of admission is May 1st. Thank you all again for joining us, and have a great rest of your night. And boiler up!